Tonight, we're continuing our ongoing election series, bringing you conversations with the candidates of some of this area's biggest races. These are not debates, there's no arguing. Instead, each candidate is allowed to lay out what their policies are and what they would do with your vote. Please note these interviews have been edited down for time, but we do have the full versions available. Tonight, we head over to Iowa and the race for the 1st District. Democrat Christina Bohannan is challenging incumbent Republican Mariannette Miller-Meeks. We'll hear from both and begin with Bohannan, whose last name comes first alphabetically. It's part of Your Voice, Your Vote coverage here on News 8 at 6:30. Let's say you win on November 8th. What are the 3 or 4 most important topics at the top of your mind when you walk into Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my priorities will always be determined by what I'm hearing from people in the district. They're not my priorities per se. I don't have an agenda that I bring into this. But as I've been going all over Southeast Iowa, I've been hearing from working families and what they're facing. And a lot of that has to do with costs, high costs of energy, gas, groceries, all of those kinds of things. And I see that certainly when I go to the grocery store as well. A few of the things I would want to work on are bringing costs down. We have to become more energy independent. We have to be able to control, our own access to fuel, and heating is going to be expensive this winter. Gas to put in our cars, we have to make sure that we're bringing those costs down. Also, healthcare. Huge issue, so things like bringing down prescription drug costs. Also, in general, our rural health care, we are seeing our small hospitals shut down in a lot of places. In Keokuk, it was just announced that the hospital there is going to close. We've seen a number of closures that way, all over this district. And we also see that the places that are operating are always having trouble finding physicians, nurses, staff, and so I would want to work on incentive programs to recruit very good healthcare workers and to keep them here. And also to keep our hospitals open, at least our emergency rooms. I think that when some of those hospitals shut down, we can at least, keep the emergency room for things like strokes and heart attacks and accidents that require immediate attention.
Turning to the economy, from Muscatine to Burlington over to Iowa City, what are ways that a congresswoman can help out when it comes to driving down inflation for people all over the 1st District?
First of all, we have to make sure that we move toward energy independence. I think that's so important. And so I did support, releasing a lot of barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. I think that was a good step. Making ethanol year-round, I think, is a good step to bring down prices in the short term and help Iowa ethanol industry, so that's good. And then, beyond that, we also need to move toward renewable energy. Iowa will be great for this. We already get a huge amount of our electricity, more than just about any other state, from renewable fuels. So that can be a real growth industry for us and a place where we can add even more jobs. So this will be great for our economy while we're also helping to bring down those prices.
Attack ads have accused you of being soft on crime and being for defunding the police. Where do you stand on those issues?
These attack ads, politics have gotten so ugly, and they're just absolutely untrue. I totally support police and law enforcement. I think that's really critical. We have to give them good wages and benefits to recruit the best and the brightest. We have to give them the training and resources they need to do a really difficult job safely, and to keep our communities safe. And the other thing I think is really important is giving them some support, like, mental health professionals, social workers, because what I've heard from a lot of law enforcement is that they are called to deal with situations that aren't really violent, a homeless person or a mentally ill person. And what we need to do is make sure that there are professionals that can deal with those situations so that our police can get back to, dealing with violent crime, which is what they were really trained to do.
Welcome back. Before the break, we heard from the Democratic candidate for Iowa's 1st Congressional District, Christina Bohannan. Now our conversation with the Republican incumbent, Mariannette Miller-Meeks. It's part of our Your Voice, Your Vote coverage here on News 8 at 6:30. Let's say you get reelected. When you walk back into Congress, for the 2nd time, with new priorities perhaps, what are the top 3 issues on your mind?
Well, I think the top 3 issues are the issues that are concerning to most people. So that's inflation, crime, and the border. We need to do something about inflation to lower gas prices, lower food prices, and we can do that by a resurgence of energy independence, opening up auctions for leases, permitting. And then in Iowa, we have a great story with renewables, and we can do both renewable and fossil fuels, but we need to get prices down. And then working on both border and crime. People have seen untold numbers of people coming across our southern border, but more importantly, you have people on the terror watch list, and you have fentanyl and synthetic fentanyl. And you all have done reports on the synthetic fentanyl that looks like Halloween candy. And last year, a record number, 107,000 deaths from overdoses. And in our young population, 18 to 45 years of age. So that is a tremendous issue. And then we have seen crime skyrocket through soft on crime policies, be it cashless bail, be it defund the police. We've had several law enforcement roundtables. I've met with our sheriffs and our police. In our state, we did both police reform, and we've also had Back the Blue. And I think we need to be able to encourage our police, hold them accountable, but we also need to support them in the job that they do every single day protecting us.
I want to move on to the economy and specifically trade, which you have listed as one of your top priorities. What specific policies would you be willing to fight for to help both large and small businesses in Iowa's 1st District when it comes to trade?
Well, both for our manufacturing economy and our agricultural economy, trade is extremely important. So whether those are trade practices that are free trade practices and fair trade that don't penalize the United States, don't have currency manipulation, don't have goods and services that are shipped overseas and then they're left there in a port, then they're tainted and they're refused and declined. We've seen those types of unfair trade practices go on. But we know that we need trade both with Europe, but we need trade in Asia as well.
Do you have any specific trade policies in mind?
Looking at the TTP, other trade policies, we know that Iowa's worked very diligently to get trade with South Korea and also trade in the Asian countries, and we continue to work on that.
I want to go to healthcare and something that you briefly touched on at the beginning, but you've talked a lot about bringing down the high costs of healthcare, and you talked a lot about how healthcare is unaffordable for a lot of Iowans. What specific policies would you have in mind that Congress could do to help bring down some of those costs?
I've submitted bills. A bill for biosimilars. These are medications that are chemically equivalent to another medication. Top of mind is insulin, and that's what drove this particular policy. So you can have generic insulin, but just through a quirk in how our code system is, it's not dispensed. So altering that will allow generic insulin. There also is innovation, artificial intelligence, wearable devices, technology that can help us, number one, to have behavioral changes, to have healthier lifestyles. Number two, that can detect and pick up diseases earlier, so they're treated at an earlier stage. And then continue what we're doing with rare and orphan drugs to treat chronic diseases. Also using artificial intelligence within our Medicare and Medicaid programs that help detect fraud. Those are all things that can help to save money, can increase affordability, and increase access to health care.
Now again, both candidates' answers were edited down for time. To view a more in-depth version of these interviews, you can tune into GMQC this Sunday morning at 8 a.m. right here on Channel 8. And to watch both interviews in their entirety, you can head over to our website or to our WQAD YouTube channel.